under the stillness of the forest, a single mother hears something no one should, a voice buried where no voice should be. She digs, driven by instinct, and uncovers more than just a man clinging to life. What follows is not a rescue. It's a storm. A man without a past, a truth no one was meant to hear, and a woman who now knows too much. Why was he hidden beneath the earth? And what did he whisper that night that changed her life forever? One choice pulls her into a web of betrayal, and there's no turning back. The sun filtered gently through the dense canopy of the forest, casting warm, flickering patterns on the leaf-covered path. Birds chirped in the distance, their songs weaving between the rustle of trees and the quiet crunch of footsteps on soft earth. Olivia walked steadily, her boots sinking slightly into the damp ground, while her 7-year-old daughter Jane skipped just ahead, collecting smooth stones and tugging on tall blades of grass. It was their Saturday tradition, getting lost in the quiet. The forest near their rural home had become their sanctuary. No passing phones, no overdubis, no reminders of the man who'd walked out and left them to figure it out alone. Just trees, sky, and the stillness Olivia had grown to crave. Jane darted off the main trail, chasing a butterfly that fluttered past her face. "Stay close," Olivia called, her voice gentle but firm. "I will," Jane chirped, already a few feet ahead and heading toward a narrow clearing between two mossy oaks. As Olivia moved to follow her daughter, she caught the faintest sound, a rustle, maybe a bird or squirrel. She paused, listening, but Jane had stopped, frozen in place. Her shoulders stiffened, her head tilted. "Mama," she whispered, turning slowly. "Did you hear that?" Olivia caught up to her, brushing stray twigs from Jane's hair. "Hear what?" Jane pointed to the ground near a thicket. It sounded like someone said water. Olivia crouched low, her brow furrowed. "Probably the wind, sweetie." But then she heard it too. Water. A raspy, cracked whisper. Barely audible. Muffled, distant, but real. Olivia's heart jumped. She stood up, scanning the area. "Stay here," she said quickly, placing Jane behind her. The forest suddenly didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt still, too still. She crept toward the sound, weaving between roots and tangled brush until she reached a patch of disturbed earth. The soil here was uneven, loose. Something had been dug up and then covered again. Then, beneath her feet, came a hollow clank. Metal. She dropped to her knees and began clawing at the dirt. It came up fast, dry and loose, as if it had been recently disturbed. Her fingers scraped against roots and stones. Her nails broke. Blood streaked her hands. But she didn't stop. "Mama," Jane called from behind her. "Is someone down there?" Olivia didn't answer. She was too focused, too frantic. After what felt like hours, but was barely 5 minutes, her fingers hooked into a metal latch buried beneath a layer of leaves and grime. She cleared it, revealing what looked like a heavy square panel, a hatch. Rusted, bolted at the corners. She pounded on it. "Hello." From beneath, a faint knock, then another whisper. "Please." Her pulse surged. She yanked at the latch. It groaned, resisting. She slammed her weight against it, once, twice, until it finally gave way with a gut-wrenching creak. Inside was darkness. A man lay there, barely moving, caked in dirt, his skin pale and sunken. His lips were cracked, his eyes half-lidded and glassy. Olivia gasped. "Jane, get the water from my bag." The child was already beside her, unscrewing the bottle with trembling fingers. Olivia gently tipped the man's chin and poured a few drops onto his tongue. He blinked slowly. Then his lips moved again. "Thank you," he whispered, voice as thin as paper. Olivia fought to keep her breath steady. "Who did this to you?" His eyes fluttered. He tried to speak, but his throat gave out. All that came was a soft, painful wheeze. She looked around. No signal, no one nearby, and she knew instinctively this man wasn't meant to be found. "We're going to get you out," she said firmly, looking him in the eye. "I don't know who you are, but I'm not leaving you here." Carefully, with trembling arms and strained breaths, she began lifting his frail body from the hatch. Jane helped, holding the water and blanket they carried for their picnic. The man groaned in pain, but never resisted. Minutes later, they were back on the trail, Olivia supporting him on one side, Jane trailing close, wide-eyed but silent. The woods no longer whispered. They watched, and Olivia, covered in dirt and blood, didn't yet know who she was saving. But something told her this was only the beginning. The old garden shed sat quietly behind Olivia's weather-worn farmhouse, hidden beneath a tangle of ivy and half swallowed by the towering pines that bordered her land. It hadn't been used for anything serious in years, just rusted tools, spare flower pots, and memories she hadn't touched since her ex left. But tonight, it became a place of refuge. The man, limp, barely conscious, hadn't said much during the drive back. Olivia had laid him across a blanket in the back of her station wagon, placing a pillow beneath his head and whispering reassurances he couldn't fully process. Jane had fallen asleep in the passenger seat, clutching the empty water bottle. Now, under the weak light of a swinging bulb, Olivia knelt beside him. He lay stretched out on an old camping mattress she had dragged in from the attic. Her hands trembled as she cleaned the dirt from his face, dabbing at cuts with warm water and peroxide. The towel turned brown with each pass. His body was thin, unnaturally so, and riddled with bruises that looked days, even weeks old. He winced when the liquid hit open wounds, but didn't protest. "You're safe now," she murmured. "I don't know who you are, but you're not dying in my shed." His lips parted, cracked and dry. They barely formed the words. "Marcus!" She leaned closer. "Marcus!" A faint nod. That was all he gave her for hours. She fed him broth spoon by spoon, kept the light dim, sat on an overturned crate, watching him drift in and out of sleep, the weight of what she'd done starting to settle in her bones. She had brought a stranger, an injured one at that, into her home. Not into the house, not with Jane sleeping under their roof. But still, this was a man who had been buried in the woods. Someone had meant for him to disappear, but she couldn't walk away. That was never an option. By dawn, he could speak a little more. When she brought him a clean shirt and some water, he reached out, weak fingers brushing her wrist. "No." "Police," he rasped. She hesitated. "What?" His eyes, hollow and dark, met hers with startling clarity. "Can't trust anyone. Not yet." She nodded, slowly. "All right. No police. Not for now." Over the next few days, Olivia cared for him in silence. She told Jane the man in the shed was sick and needed rest. Jane, with a child's ability to accept the unexplainable, simply nodded and asked if he liked tomato soup. Marcus barely left the mattress, but each day his strength grew. His voice grew less faint. He started eating more, drinking more, and finally speaking in full sentences. He never asked for anything, but he always said thank you. Olivia brought him her son's old clothes, cleaned and folded. She found a better blanket, sealed the shed's gaps with towels, and added a portable heater. Every time she stepped inside, she caught the same look in his eyes, a mix of pain, gratitude, and something harder to name. On the fourth day, as the sky turned golden outside and the pines cast long shadows across the yard, he finally spoke the words that froze her in place. "They buried me alive." She turned, slowly, the soup in her hand going cold. "What?" Marcus sat upright now, hands clenched over his knees. His voice was stronger, shaky but steady. "They thought I was dead, or hoped I would be. Left me in that box in the ground. If you and your daughter hadn't walked by." His voice cracked, and he didn't finish the sentence. Olivia lowered herself onto the crate again, heart pounding. "Who did this to you?" He closed his eyes. "I'll tell you, but not all at once. I need time, and I need your trust." Olivia studied him for a long moment. The man in front of her was still pale, still healing, but beneath the bruises there was steel. Whatever had happened to him wasn't random, and whoever had done it wasn't done yet. She set the soup down and nodded. "You have it," she said quietly, because she didn't just hear his words. She believed everything he just said. Marcus sat upright now, wrapped in a thick blanket, his strength returning day by day. The bruises on his face had faded into pale reminders, But his eyes, those hadn't healed. They carried something that made Olivia's stomach twist every time he spoke. She sat across from him on the floor, knees tucked under her. Jane was asleep in the house, and this was their time, when the world was quiet and the pain could surface without interruption. He hadn't spoken for a full minute. Then, softly, "I was supposed to be married." Olivia didn't reply. She waited. Marcus exhaled. Her name was Eliza. Perfect in public, cold behind closed doors. But I didn't see it, not until too late. He looked at his hands. I walked in on her, with my brother. Olivia's eyes widened, but she didn't speak. They were laughing, he continued, his voice harder now. "In my home, in my bed." I didn't shout. I didn't hit anything. I just stood there, and I turned around. I canceled the wedding the next day. Called off every contract. Froze her accounts. Fired him from the board. He paused. They didn't take it well. The shed fell silent again, except for the tapping rain and the distant creak of trees. Then, 3 nights later, I had dinner at my penthouse. Alone, I thought. My drink was already poured. They knew the schedule. Knew the staff was gone. I remember the taste. Bitter. Wrong. He looked up at Olivia. His voice shook. I woke up underground. A flash of light flickered in his memory. Bound at the wrists, groggy and slurring, dragged through dark woods under a moonless sky. His brother's face looming over him. Eliza's perfume lingering like poison. The sound of shovels. A box. Cold steel. Then blackness. I thought I was dreaming, he whispered, until I realized I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Couldn't breathe. Just the smell of earth. And silence. Olivia's hand trembled as she reached for his. He didn't pull away. They were going to inherit everything. If I died unmarried, with no succession plan, it would default. The company, the estate, the investments. All of it. They buried me to take it all. "But you survived," Olivia said, almost to herself. "Barely." He let out a dry, humorless laugh. "If you hadn't walked that trail." His voice faded. Olivia leaned in, steadying her breath. "They think you're dead." He nodded. "And I plan to keep it that way for now." She took that in. Every word felt like a weight placed into her chest. This wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even about greed. It was deliberate erasure. The kind people don't recover from. The kind that don't survive. But Marcus had survived. And now, he was telling her. Not because he needed to confess, but because he needed a partner. "What do you need?" she asked. He looked her in the eye. "Help. A phone. A laptop. Quiet time. And a second chance." Olivia didn't hesitate. "I'll get it." Because the man who had clawed his way back from a grave wasn't asking for pity. He was asking for justice. And she wasn't about to let him fight for it alone. The shed had become their war room. By day, Olivia kept up appearances, school drop-offs, grocery runs, pretending everything was normal. But by night, with Jane tucked safely in bed, she and Marcus worked quietly under the low hum of the desk lamp. The first order of business, erasing Marcus Callahan. They shaved his beard, cut his hair, and dyed it just enough to alter his appearance. Olivia ordered a burner phone and a new laptop under a fake name, picking them up from a convenience store an hour away. Marcus, still weak but sharper with every passing day, sat at the folding table in the corner of the shed, fingers dancing over the keyboard like a man brought back to life. "Passwords haven't changed," he muttered one night, eyes locked on the screen. Fools got comfortable. He'd set up cloud backups years ago, encrypted files, private messages, voice memos, even surveillance from his personal office security system. Before the betrayal, Marcus had been suspicious. Paranoid, maybe. But now it felt prophetic. "Here," he said one night, turning the laptop toward Olivia. "Audio from my office 3 days before I was drugged." She leaned in and listened. It was Eliza's voice. "He knows. We have to move faster." Then his brother, cool and calculated. "Then we do what we planned." It ends Saturday. No body, no questions. Olivia covered her mouth. "That's attempted murder," she whispered. Marcus only nodded. But gathering evidence wasn't enough. They needed witnesses. Loyal ones. People who knew Marcus and would believe him alive. He scribbled 2 names on a notepad. "Avon Jaw, my CTO. If anyone can help dig deeper, it's him." And Meredith Lane, my old assistant. She's smart, loyal. I trust her. Olivia didn't ask questions. She reached out through anonymous emails, using coded language Marcus provided. After days of waiting and one misconnection, they finally got a reply. Evan met them at night, 2 towns over, in an empty diner. Marcus wore a hoodie and sunglasses, but the shock in Evan's face was instant. Holy, Marcus, keep your voice down, Olivia warned. Evan blinked, visibly shaken. We thought you were dead. There was a memorial. Eliza gave a speech. Marcus leaned forward. I need your help, and your silence. It didn't take long before Evan was on board, helping decrypt company files, flagging edited documents, exposing shell transfers, and false consulting fees. The deeper they dug, the clearer the betrayal became. Next came Meredith. Olivia met her in the parking lot of a bookstore, a scarf covering her face. Meredith paled when she saw Marcus waiting in the passenger seat. I don't believe it, she breathed. Believe it, Marcus said softly. She handed him a thumb drive. These are copies of all board meeting notes, including the ones they scrubbed from the company system. I knew something wasn't right. Back at the shed, they assembled everything into a shared drive, categorized by date, by name, by crime. Fraud, embezzlement, attempted murder. Olivia watched Marcus work, hour after hour, not for revenge, but for clarity. She could see it in his eyes. He didn't want to destroy them. He wanted truth. One evening, while Jane played quietly in the house, Olivia sat across from him, watching as he reviewed a security footage clip in slow motion. In it, Eliza handed a glass to someone off-screen. The timestamp matched the night he was drugged. I trusted them, Marcus said, his voice hollow. Not just with my company, with my life. Olivia reached for his hand. And now you trust me. We're not letting them win. But they both knew, the more evidence they gathered, the higher the risk became. Eliza and Vincent thought Marcus was buried. And if they ever found out he wasn't, they'd try to finish the job. Time was running out, but so was their silence. The chandeliers sparkled like constellations in the high ceiling of the ballroom. Velvet curtains framed gold-accented windows. Waiters in white gloves floated across the floor with champagne flutes, weaving through clusters of the city's elite dressed in gowns and tailored suits. A string quartet played softly near the stage, where a sleek banner read, "The Callahan Foundation Annual Gala, in honor of a legacy that lives on." Vincent Callahan stood near the podium, straightening his cufflinks, a glass of scotch in his hand. Beside him, Eliza wore a red silk gown, smiling for cameras, accepting compliments with a performance honed by months of pretending. She looked radiant, composed, untouchable. They had no idea what was coming. Outside, a black car pulled up to the valet. The driver stepped out first. Then the back door opened, and Marcus emerged. He adjusted the lapels of his dark suit. The man who had once been dragged unconscious into the woods now walked with unshakable calm. Olivia stepped beside him, radiant in an elegant navy dress. She didn't wear diamonds or designer heels, just confidence. Inside the ballroom, conversation hummed until the main doors opened. It happened slowly. Heads turned. Glasses paused midair. Conversations stopped. One woman gasped. A man dropped his phone. And then, a ripple of silence. Vincent's jaw slackened. Eliza froze mid-laugh, her eyes widening as if she'd seen a ghost. Marcus stepped forward, the spotlight finding him naturally. He wasn't pale, or broken, or hiding anymore. He was back. The string quartet stopped playing. Whispers filled the room. Is that Marcus Callahan? He's supposed to be. They said he died. Eliza stumbled forward. Marcus, she began, her voice strained. We thought you were dead. Marcus said calmly. Yes, that was the plan, wasn't it? The room tensed like it had sucked in all the air at once. Olivia moved swiftly, handing a small USB drive to a young journalist from the Herald who had been invited to cover the event. Check your inbox, she said. The truth's already there. Simultaneously, Evan and Meredith, stationed across the ballroom, hit send on their emails. Within moments, inboxes buzzed. Phones lit up, screens filled with documents, voice recordings, financial ledgers, security footage. The evidence was everywhere. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, attempted murder. Then came the sound of footsteps, measured and official. Two plainclothes detectives appeared at the back of the room, followed by uniformed officers. The lead detective approached the stage just as Marcus stopped before his brother and ex-fiancée. "I believe you're looking for these two," Marcus said, voice even. Eliza backed up, her perfect facade cracking like glass. "This is insane. He's lying. We have your voice on tape, Ms. Bennett," the detective said coldly. "Discussing how you drugged and buried Mr. Callahan. You're under arrest." Vincent didn't move, not even when the cuffs clicked closed around his wrists. He just stared at Marcus, betrayed not by a stranger, but by the brother he thought he'd erased. Flashbulbs exploded. The room erupted, not in cheers, but in stunned, electric silence. As the officers escorted them out, the detective turned to Marcus. "We'll be in touch. You made quite a case." The courthouse steps were lined with reporters. Cameras flashed. Microphones were thrust forward. Voices called out, shouting Marcus's name from every angle. "Mr. Callahan, do you plan to press charges for attempted murder? Will you be reclaiming your role at the company? Is it true you're suing for damages? What's next for Marcus Callahan?" He stood at the top of the stairs, a calm figure in a dark coat, flanked by his attorney. But his gaze wasn't on the crowd. It lingered far beyond them, on something quieter, something none of them could see. "No comment," he said finally, his voice clear and even. "There would be no grand vengeance. No corporate comeback. No tabloid-fueled court battle. Marcus Callahan had been buried once. He had clawed his way back, not to prove a point, but to find his peace." He descended the steps slowly, ignoring the chaos behind him, and climbed into the waiting car. A silent ride through the city streets took him to the edge of town, where gravel roads wound between trees still touched with autumn gold. And there, where the sky opened wide and the water stretched calm and glassy, Olivia waited by the lake. She stood in a simple sweater and jeans, her boots tucked in the fallen leaves. Jane knelt at the water's edge, tossing stones and watching them ripple. Marcus stepped out, the cool wind brushing against his face. He breathed it in like medicine. Olivia turned to him with a soft smile. "You survived the storm." He nodded, hands in his coat pockets. "Barely. You didn't have to come here." "I did," he said. "There's no court ruling, no headline, no public apology that could ever matter more than this." He walked closer, eyes never leaving hers. "You gave me back my life. Both of you." Jane looked up and grinned. "He made it, Mama." Olivia smiled, but said nothing. She watched Marcus kneel beside her daughter, picking up a stone and skipping it gently across the surface. 3 skips, Jane counted. "You're a good teacher," Marcus replied with a wink. Later, as the sun dipped low behind the hills and turned the lake copper, the 3 of them sat on a blanket near the shore. Marcus took out a folded piece of paper, worn, creased at the corners. "It's an idea," he said, handing it to Olivia. "Something I've been thinking about. Not a company, not a brand, just something good." She read it quietly. "The Horizon Project, a foundation for survivors of betrayal, abuse, and injustice. Because no one should have to dig their way out alone." Olivia looked up, eyes shining. "I want to fund it," Marcus said. "Staff it. Build it right here, close to where this started. You can run it with me, if you'd like. I want Jane to grow up seeing that healing is real." A silence fell, filled only by the soft rustling of trees. "You're sure?" Olivia asked. "I don't want my money to sit in a vault while people like Eliza and Vincent walk away pretending it never happened. I don't want revenge." He paused. "I want purpose." Olivia nodded slowly. "Then let's do it. Together." Months later, the lawn outside the newly built Horizon Center buzzed with quiet excitement. Banners fluttered in the breeze. Reporters had gathered again, but this time there was no scandal. Only hope. The center stood as a symbol, glass walls open to the sun, bright murals on the inside, and healing spaces tucked between reading rooms and counseling offices. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was simple. No excessive speeches. No limousines. Just a handful of people who understood what it meant to begin again. Olivia stood near the podium, Jane at her side in a yellow dress, holding a flower she had picked from the garden. When Marcus approached the microphone, the crowd leaned in. Months ago, I thought I was alone. I thought no one would find me. And worse, that no one would care if they didn't. But a stranger, a single mother, with no reason to trust me, gave me more than just help. She gave me hope. He turned toward Olivia and Jane. I don't stand here because I'm wealthy. I stand here because I was rescued. And I want this place to be a lifeline for others who are trapped, betrayed, or abandoned. He stepped aside, and Olivia joined him. Cameras flashed, but she didn't flinch. We're not building a company, she said. We're building second chances. And we hope you'll help us offer them to the people who need it most. The crowd erupted in applause. Jane clutched both their hands as they cut the ribbon together. Later, as guests wandered the halls and the sun slipped toward the horizon, Marcus stood on the balcony with Olivia, overlooking the lake in the distance. I used to think legacy was about buildings and deals, he said. And now? Olivia asked. He glanced back at the center where Jane played with other children, laughter echoing from the atrium. Now, I think it's about who you walk home with when it's all over. Olivia leaned against his shoulder. He didn't need to be Marcus Callahan, the mogul. Here, with them, he was simply Marcus, the man who found more than survival. He had found something real, a new beginning, a new family he can trust. If this story touched your heart, like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more powerful, soul-touching stories that restore faith in humanity.